Wake up, everybody. Welcome into Redacted. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And on this show, we cover the stories the mainstream media largely ignores. And one of the big stories they've been failing to cover for a long time is what actually brought the towers down on 9/11, including Building 7. One senator is leading the charge now and pushing for a new investigation, Senator Ron Johnson. He's going to be joining us on that topic. Plus, we're going to be talking about the Los Angeles riots, what's happening there, and the big, beautiful spending bill, which Senator Johnson yesterday said is going to backfire on President Trump and called it immoral. So we're going to talk about that. Senator will join us here in moments.
Also, we're going to talk about the riots in Los Angeles, clearly because we have a tale of two narratives, one extremely right-wing, one extremely left-wing. We know the truth is somewhere in the middle, so we're going to talk about that. Also, we're going to speak to the Arizona senator who's trying to unseat Governor Hobbs and why he's trying to do that. We're very excited to speak to him. Plus, this weird cover-up story in the Wall Street Journal about aliens. Like, oh, it's the government. We've been trying to fool you all along about Area 51. That was a psyop. We're admitting it now. What's that about? You can expect Clayton to have some opinions. Some thoughts on the matter?
I'm very angry about this story. It was ridiculous this weekend. Yeah. How many of you saw this Wall Street Journal story? They're basically like, yeah, everything from the last 60, 70 years, it's all been one big psyop. It's all one big psyop. And the Pentagon has been misleading people about this, all in an effort to keep our secret aircraft programs from leaking out.
So if that's better.
Right.
I mean, the government has not hid secret weapons. They have tested it on us, on civilians. We have the fallout from the nuclear race. So why would they do this now? Like, oh, yeah, don't look over there. So we're going to look over there. That's what we do.
So thank you, guys. Let us know where you're joining us from around the world today. I saw South Africa is here. Good to see all of you joining us. Let us know. And what's up, Team Redacted? Rafiq says, nice to see you guys as well. And I was just out in Southern California and just got out just in time for this sort of craziness that's happening there. It's really crazy. But we're going to get to all of that. Senator Johnson is going to join us here in seconds. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends over at Chapter because, hey, if you're on Medicare or you're getting close or someone you know is, then you need to know about Chapter because they are a company that helps you understand Medicare so that you can choose the plan that is best for you. Now, there are a lot of companies who do this. Unfortunately, so many of them are unethical. In fact, the Department of Justice recently filed a massive fraud complaint against 3 of the largest Medicare brokers because they were pointing to people to plans that maybe weren't best for them, but those companies were getting kickbacks. That's disgusting and disappointing, but not uncommon. In fact, that's why Chapter was created because the founders were victims of those scams. So they are fully independent. They're the only national advisors that search every Medicare plan available to find the one that fits your needs. They advocate for you, not the insurance companies. No pressure, no steering, and no stealing. Right, that too. So if you want help with Medicare, give Chapter a call by calling the number on your screen. They've saved the average senior over $1,000 a year, and it's a free resource. Or you can call them or go today to askchapter.org/redacted. One more time, that's askchapter.org/redacted.
Well, riots have rocked Los Angeles for the past 48 hours. Chaos in the streets, looting, fires, police on the defensive, being hit with bricks and being attacked. We're going to have more on that part of the story in a moment. But joining us now is Senator Ron Johnson. He's raising alarms over President Trump's so-called big, beautiful budget bill, warning that it's not just bloated, but it's dangerous, and he's calling it immoral. We've been calling it that here on the show. Senator Johnson says the bill could backfire in a big way, and he is ready for a fight on this. That and so much more to discuss with Senator Ron Johnson, who joins us now. Senator, great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Well, guys, let me just kind of correct what you just said, though. I haven't called the bill dangerous or immoral. I've been calling the fact that we're mortgaging our children's future dangerous and immoral. The bill just doesn't meet the moment. It doesn't go anywhere close to far enough. But there are many good elements in it. But again, I've tried to be as positive as possible. President Trump said I'm too negative. But again, it's again what I cannot accept is $2 trillion $2 trillion a year deficits rising to 2.6, 2.7, 2.8 or 9 by the end of the decade is a new normal. I mean, that's just simply unacceptable. This is our moment. We've witnessed an unprecedented amount of federal government spending increase over the last 6 years. We have to address it. So, but anyway.
Now, something Representative Massey has said over and over again is we don't need to do it this way. We don't have to pack it all into one big suitcase that then goes over your 50-pound limit. We can just do it in small measure because Republicans have control. So why do you think that there's still this protocol for the bill that no one can read because of its page count, stuffed with special interest requests?
Well, this is the approach that has always worked in the past that has allowed us to mortgage our children's future to the tune of $37 trillion. Again, Leader Thune recommended a two-step approach. I recommend a three-step: border funding, defense, table or pocket about $850 billion of real spending reductions. Then come back, just extend current tax law, take a massive automatic tax increase off the table, bring that certainty back to the economy. We could have already done all that and then come back and now wrestle with the big, beautiful bill that's pretty complex, pretty messy. We're unfortunately going to have to increase the debt ceiling, by the way, by a massive amount. What I've been recommending is to maintain pressure to do this in a multi-step process is give President Trump increase the debt ceiling for about a year. That'll cost about $2.5 trillion, increase the debt ceiling. That should shock everybody because we're basically burning a $500 billion a quarter right now. So again, we have to grapple with this. My beef with the House is that they weren't really discussing numbers in a budget reconciliation. About the only number you heard about was $1.5 trillion, which sounds like a lot, but put it in context of $22 trillion estimated additional deficits over the next 10 years, $2.2 trillion per year average. And you realize 1.5 trillion is barely a rounding error in the 89 trillion that we're expected to spend over that 10-year period. So I know it's a lot of numbers. I was just on another program rattling those things off, and the host said, Senator, nobody understood that. I get it. I really do. I understand that. But it's the slogans, it's the rhetoric that has allowed us to really accumulate this much debt. At some point in time, we've got to understand the reality. We've got to look at numbers and figures and really address them.
I mean, it's so when you talked with my old colleague Maria yesterday, I believe you said, it's going to backfire, that this whole thing is going to backfire. What do you mean by that? How is it going to I mean, mortgaging our children's future is one thing, but Trump supporters, I think, really ran on this, really supported this idea, conservative values here. We cannot sustain this any longer. $36 trillion in debt. We got excited about Doge. We got really excited about all of these fraud, waste, and abuse that Doge was finding. And then, through the back door, we're sneaking in trillions of dollars in new spending. So how exactly do you think it's going to backfire? Backfire for Trump? Backfire for conservatives? Backfire for MAGA? Or just backfire for the country?
Well, I'm not sure I said backfire, but certainly, I can understand why, our supporters want us to actually reel in the size of government. Now, I supported President Trump because I wanted him to defeat the deep state. You don't defeat the deep state by continuing to fund it at President Biden's levels. So that's the first point I'd make. But what I'm finding is just a great deal of support for the position I'm taking. These are from people like me that completely support President Trump, that realize he's a completely unique political figure that is willing to do hard things that nobody else is willing to do. So again, I completely support him. I want to see him succeed. But even among people who are just diehard Trump fans, they're supporting what I'm doing because they also realize that our higher loyalty has to be to our kids and grandkids, and we really are immorally bankrupting and mortgaging their future. That's got to stop. It's got to end. And we've got a once in a lifetime opportunity. That's been my point. This one big beautiful bill, if passed as is pretty much a one and done. We're not going to take up anything else before the next election. There's no guarantee. As much as I want to see the House maintain the majority there, Senate retain a Republican majority, there's no guarantee of that. So this is our moment. It's a historic opportunity. Let's not blow it.
Right. And we have precedents for this because when President Trump released COVID relief money, he was presented with a big bloated piece of crap, and he said, no, I can't approve this. He sent it back and cut it back significantly. And so he can do it, But again, this page count that nobody can read, what's it going to take for President Trump to do that again?
Well, again, hopefully I'm trying to persuade him that, pass the good elements, the things, the must-haves, but make sure that we've got a forcing mechanism to come back and keep working. One of the things I've been talking about is a budget review panel. We've never forensically audited line by line of the budget, the over 2,600 programs. Did you realize that? We have more than 2,600 programs in the federal government. I have to believe, with this massive increase in spending, 58% since 2019, that there's hundreds of billions of dollars that, first of all, above and beyond 2019 spending, plus up for population growth and inflation. We've got hundreds of billions of dollars, not in Medicare, not in Social Security, but in all the other programs. And that there are hundreds of programs that if you eliminate that spending in those programs, nobody would even notice, except for the grifters who are sucking down the waste, fraud, abuse, and pork. So again, you have to do the work. You need the time to do the work. Again, I think the House has done a lot of good stuff in this. There's no doubt about that. And I understand Speaker Johnson's challenge. It's not easy. That's the other point I was trying to make out when I was in the White House with the president last week. He said, Democrats are always so unified. And I point out, well, that's because they're doing easy stuff. They're just spending more money. They're mortgaging our kids' future. They're never held accountable by the media. It's easy to be a Democrat. It's really hard trying to do what we're trying to do. So I sympathize with Speaker Johnson, with President Trump. I don't want to be a problem child. I don't want to make their life or job tougher. But again, my higher loyalty is to our kids and grandkids, and we have to do the hard things. What's the point of having a majority if you don't do what we always say we're going to do with it? Not right. Just right. But that might cost us the election. I'm sorry, we got to do it now.
No, that's what I love about you, because these are the promises made, and we need to keep these promises. I mean, this is what so many Americans overwhelmingly in all of these swing states. I mean, for crying out loud, these are the promises that were made. We need to keep these promises. And to be clear, Senator, so Fox News Digital had quoted you. It'll completely backfire on him, end quote. Senator Ron Johnson told Fox News.
I say a lot of things. So again, I just couldn't remember what.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I didn't want to put words in your mouth and take words out, but this is on foxnews.com. So I just want to be clear about that on President Trump battling for this big, beautiful bill. But do you think it's going to pass? And people in our chat room are asking, because we got tens of thousands of people watching. They're like, has anyone read this bill, Senator?
Well, not in its current form. I think people are shocked by the fact that whatever the House sent over to us, normally they figure the Senate's going to water it down and make it even less conservative. In this case, I think we may have a chance of making it significantly more conservative. For one reason, now we've had the time and we're able to describe the fraud in Medicaid. Up until this point, because the House was just kind of working on getting the thing passed, nobody was really effectively going out there talking about, like an article in the Wall Street Journal, a dad of a 17-year-old autistic child who's on a 10-year waiting list for home care because he's being crowded out by single, working-age, able-bodied adults. And the fact that for a disabled child, for every dollar the states put into that health care for that child, the federal government kicks in $1.33. For a single able-bodied working-age childless adult, for every dollar the state kicks into that, the federal government puts in $9, which has just allowed to a complete abuse of the system, these provider taxes, provider fees. That's not health care. Those are fees the states are assessing on providers because they're able to game the system. And by the way, just a quick analogy, what's happening here is, this is personalized. Let's say you got this guy named Uncle Sam over here, kind of a knucklehead. For whatever reason, he's willing to offer me $18 because I can extract $20 from that guy over there. So I go up to that guy over there and say, hey, give me $20. I'll show that this Uncle Sam guy that you've given me $20. He'll give me 18. I'll come back. I'll give you $20 back. That's exactly what's happening with the Medicaid expansion and the states. And then in addition to that, because they are charging for real procedures, they're allowing those providers to overcharge them. So now we are paying providers 2 to 3 times the amount for Medicaid procedures as we do for Medicare. So this is resulting in hundreds of billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. It's crowding out care for disabled children. It's crowding out the dollars available for that care. We need time to make that case. If the American people understood it, they would be outraged. They would support what we're doing. as opposed to rushing through and allowing the Democrats to say, these guys are cutting Medicaid for disabled children. No, we're trying to preserve it and save it.
Well, they love their talking points. One of the other areas that you've been very bullish on, of course, is border security. And President Trump authorized the deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops to Los Angeles this weekend to respond to what the White House has described as approximately 1,000 protesters turned rioters. But if you watch the local news reports, Senator, these aren't rioters. They're just some people having fun watching cars burn. Watch this.
Large group of people. It could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers.
Unbelievable. Yeah,
Ever heard of burn pits? Do you want to get cancer? Is that a fun cancer-getting party?
Fun. So, Senator, Governor Newsom says, quote, "We didn't have a problem until Trump got involved in this." What do you make of what's happening right now in Los Angeles? And you have liberal, you have a liberal mayor there in Los Angeles, basically angry that the federal government is getting involved and is totally okay with law enforcement getting pelted in the head with bricks.
Yeah, I would consider attempted murder, and we ought to try and protect law enforcement as they're carrying out their lawful duties, trying to protect Americans, okay? Now, this is outrageous what's happening. The best example I can use is what happened here in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where Governor Evers rejected President Trump's offer to send in nationalized National Guard troops or federalized National Guard troops. He turned it down for a couple of days and allowed Kenosha to burn. A couple of people get murdered or killed. Okay, so now he's signing on to a letter supporting Governor Newsom to take the same stupid action of not bringing massive manpower to prevent the violence. That's why you bring in massive manpower so you don't have rioting, so you don't have violence, so that people don't get killed. It worked in Kenosha. Once Governor Evers finally reversed course because he had to, brought in the National Guard, and those riots ended. There was no more violence. There was no more killing. Ought to do the same thing in Los Angeles. You can't allow this to get out of control.
But the impetus, the match that lit this flame was raids at a Home Depot and a clothing store and things like that.
Many of these people with criminal records.
Right. And so I think what the liberal talking point might be is they weren't doing anything. Not all of them were criminals. We're just tired of seeing this happen. And it's not actually helping to, clean out, I guess, illegals in the country. I'm struggling because it's not my talking point, but that's what you see online.
You can't even say it because it's so...
I can't make it, yeah, but let's respond to
ridiculous.
It anyhow.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous you can't even say it.
Well, again, from my standpoint, what the Democrats did, what Biden did, they created a clear and present danger for this nation. I don't know the exact number, but there are a lot of criminals, sex traffickers, human traffickers, drug traffickers, members of transnational criminal organizations, members of incredibly violent gangs that are committing rapes, horrendous murders. Okay, that's happening. And President Trump is trying to clean up that enormous mess. And it's not going to be perfect, but I support law enforcement. I understand why ICE officers go to a court, like in Wisconsin here, where the then judge obstructed justice by shuffling the illegal immigrant out the back door, but they do it because it's safer for everybody. It's safer for the illegal immigrant that they're trying to apprehend. It's certainly safer for the law enforcement officials. I want to keep those people safe. I want them to be able to go home to their families. So yes, you go into places where it's safer to go to arrest the illegal immigrant that they have no right to be in this country. They should be arrested. They should be deported. A large majority of Americans support that process. They didn't like the open borders. Again, I don't like relatively innocent people being, kind of caught up in this whole process. But again, this is a big mess, and it's not easy to clean it up.
Yeah, it's going to be messy. Absolutely. And I spoke to a supervisor of the Customs and Border Protection today, and he said, this is absolutely astonishing what's happening right now, and how, why don't we have the support of local leaders right now and members of Congress, local representatives, and mayors helping to assist this is just mind-boggling right now.
I want to ask you on this topic that you have an upcoming hearing with sanctuary state governors where you will ask them, how did this happen? How did this get out of hand? What should we expect from this?
Well, again, so this Senator Langford is the chairman of the subcommittee that's holding this hearing. I expect that these mayors and these individuals are going to defend their policies. And they'll use the same old talking points. They won't defend federal law enforcement. They're going to defend the people in this country illegally. Again, it's amazing that they're clinging to this policy, that they want open borders. They want to protect the people that are just, horrible criminals in many cases. I don't get it. They're able to get away with it, though, because most members of the media are radical leftists themselves. They agree with this. They want an open border world. They don't respect America as a great nation. I can't explain it. I'll never get in the mind of a liberal. They're crazy from my standpoint, but that's who they are. That's what they support.
And the treasonous acts by Alejandro Mayorkas, and coordinating with these NGOs to bring these.
Well, they love
millions.
perverts.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I have learned that I am comfortable saying is that liberals love perverts and love protecting perverts. And that's what turned me away from the Democrat
That's
Party.
why you're never going to be a senator, because you say stuff like that. But
I said that.
Yeah,
I said what I
that.
said.
Senator, stick around.
Last time I was down the border, and this was really at the height of it. I had not heard of this. I've been chairman of Homeland Security, been down the border a lot, but this is the first time I heard it. These, what they call rape trees, or panty trees, or taunting trees. This is where the human traffickers, they'll just hang the undergarments of the little girls that they'll rape.
Jeez.
Just to taunt the Customs Border Patrol. You can't touch this. You can't do anything about it. I mean, this is what open borders, that's what it facilitated, that evil. And Mayorkas, as you said, they were okay with it. They just turned a blind. We would talk to him about this in hearings, and he'd just be oblivious to it. Like I asked him, I said, do you feel like you aided and abetted these murders, these rapes? And he was just impervious to any kind of criticism. He was the most annoying person, the most frustrating person to have as a witness before the committee, because it just bounced off him.
And demonic. I would say demonic, honestly.
Yeah.
Senator, please stick around, because last week I spent quite a long time speaking with 9/11 firefighters for truth. I mean, they are fighting right now to get answers about what happened on that day, what they believe was the controlled demolition of the towers and Building 7. I've been hearing from a lot of people over the past few days, a lot of 9/11 folks who have been really fighting for years, and they say, Senator Johnson is at the tip of the spear right now. So I want to talk to you about that and pushing for an investigation on 9/11 when we come back. So just hang there for a minute, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll have you back here in a second, Senator. But first, if you are buried under credit card bills and personal loan and medical debt, you might want to call in the experts to help you, because that is overwhelming and stressful. That's where our friends at PDS Debt come in. They do more than just manage your debt. They empower you to take control. Using their platform, they go beyond the numbers to understand your unique financial situation and craft a personalized plan designed just for you. So no more cookie cutter solutions, just a clear, personalized path to financial freedom that fits for your family and your lifestyle. And here's the best part. There's no minimum credit score required. So whether your credit score is bad or fair, they can help you save more, pay off your debt faster, and start putting money back where it belongs, into your savings. So getting started is easy. Head on over to pdsdebt.com/redacted. That's PDS, Papa Delta Sierra, debt.com/redacted. Stop waiting and start saving. One more time, pdsdebt.com/redacted. Take control today. Well, we're back with Senator Ron Johnson, and we're going to dig into one of the most controversial issues in American history, what really brought down the Twin Towers, Building 7 on 9/11. Senator Johnson is calling for new hearings, asking the tough questions the government refuses to ask. Here at Redacted, we've said it before, you'd have to prove to us that the buildings weren't brought down in a controlled demolition. Here you're seeing Building 7 going down perfectly. By the way, the building was a trapezoid shape, perfectly controlled demolition, in our opinion, and the opinion of 9/11 firefighters who I spoke to last week, who are fighting for justice for the firefighters that lost their lives, for the families that lost their lives. And Senator Johnson is really leading now, I think, the conversation around this. I spoke to Congressman Kurt Weldon this weekend, and he feels like we've maybe turned a corner, that there, and you're actually seeing some positivity now and a light at the end of this tunnel for so many of these victims of 9/11, trying to get answers on these sort of taboo subjects that you'd be labeled a conspiracy theorist before. So Senator Johnson, this is a brave thing you're doing. I will say this is a very brave thing you're doing. Where do things stand now, and why now? Why now did you decide to maybe lead the charge on this investigation into 9/11?
Well, I'm still being labeled a conspiracy theorist. I have in the
Welcome
past.
to the club.
But everything I was looking into has all been proven true. Listen, I, like most Americans, just accepted the narrative of what happened 9/11. Didn't really think much of it. It obviously changed the world. I'm not a New Yorker. But how I got involved in this really was my then chairman of the Permanent Subcommittee Investigation, now I'm chairman, Richard Blumenthal, wanted to do an investigation of Saudi involvement with the Live Golf and PVI, or the PGA. And it was an investigation I really wasn't interested in, and it's private sector negotiation, let them do it. But the result of that had a pretty high profile hearing. And so I was approached by 9/11 families with a packet of information from the FBI, heavily redacted. That's all they've been able to get out of the FBI 20-some years after 9/11 in terms of what the FBI knew about potential Saudi involvement. And they asked me to use my position, my responsibility, to try and get that information unredacted. So I asked Senator Blumenthal in the hearing, would you join me? He joined me and requested information from the FBI. Of course, we got squat. We got nothing. And then further, Kurt Weldon appeared on Tucker Carlson, and after many, many years having this all bottled up, is starting to talk about more things. So that just starts you down the road of having your eyes opened, and you look at some of these documentaries like Seven, Bravo 7, I can't remember the full name of that, and you just realize there are a lot of legitimate questions that weren't allowed to be answered. I mean, you see the 9/11 commissioners said it was set up to fail. Again, you just end up with all these very legitimate, they're not crazy questions. It's like,
no.
Yeah, why did they just get rid of all the debris from 9/11? Totally contrary to any type of firefighting investigation. Again, I could rattle down a whole list of questions. So all I can say right now, I don't have answers. I'm not sure we ever will get answers. But I think these are legitimate questions, and I'm kind of open for business. I mean, you've got information. I just actually saw somebody walking out of the Hart building as I was walking in, kind of serendipity there. And this individual was volunteered to sift through some of the debris, looking and pulling out any kind of electronic piece of equipment and sorting it out. Why? I mean, for what happened to that? So again, I don't know. Could be perfectly innocent. Could be less innocent. I don't know. I just don't know. All I know, again, I'll underscore that there are so many very legitimate questions. I think these people, firefighters, people who lost loved ones, 9/11 families, at a minimum, they ought to be able to have somebody ask those questions and try and get answers to them.
Yeah, and so many of it left out of the 9/11 Commission report. I mean, you just brought up, why did we ship off this steel to China 2 weeks after so that we couldn't examine the burn, the temperature burn on the steel, the thermite, the nanothermite particles in the dust, which wasn't even in the 9/11 Commission report. It required third parties to go and look at. And then you have, as you pointed out, the 9/11 Commission really was sort of set up to fail from the beginning. And I think when I spoke to these firefighters who've been really fighting for this, they said, what we're hoping Senator Johnson will do, what we're hoping Congress will do this time, is set up really an independent commission where there's no special interests in there. You don't have these bureaucrats in there. You don't have like these industry insiders in there who have something to hide. Is that possible? Do you think that's even possible, Senator?
But it would be possible if we can assemble all these legitimate questions and just lay them out in the hearing. Again, no expectations. You really don't expect out of me that I'm going to come to all the conclusions. Here's your answers. What I can do is I can assemble the legitimate questions. Again, if some of them have already been answered, if some of those theories have been debunked, fine. Again, I'm just interested in the truth, and that's what whether it's the 9/11 families, whether it's the firefighters, whether it's the architects that are for 9/11 truth. I mean, all these people that look at this and just go, and people that are knowledgeable. I mean, people that have now. I mean, firefighters. There was never a steel structure building like that brought down by a fire. That's why they went up there. They were not expecting that to come down on their heads. There's one pretty famous guy, walked 40 floors up to the floor where the fires was, and really seconds before the towers came down. He said, "Okay, we got this under control. I need X number of units to do it." Again, they were not expecting this, and certainly wouldn't expect Building 7. I guess that's where my eyes were opened to these legitimate questions. I mean, didn't even ever hear about Building 7. All of a sudden you see the video that you're playing right now, and it's like, that sure looks like controlled demolition to me. And then you get that structural engineering professor up in Alaska, does a 4-year study with the graduate students, pretty well debunks the NIST study that they won't even release their calculations, or a lot of them. Again, so okay, why? Why did this suppress all of the reports? This Graham McQueen guy he just was really looking into this, so he just found all this file footage and identified something like 156 people that day. 2 reporters saying they heard explosions. That wasn't part of that. So again, why were all those legitimate questions suppressed? Why was that information really brought to the fore? Why did you really go in the news media from explosions being heard ahead of time to the way the building brought the Twin Towers down? No further questions need to be asked. I mean, the BBC reporter was, that literally said, "Oh, the Building 7 came down and it's just right over her shoulder."
And it hadn't come down yet.
Yeah.
And it hadn't. Yeah. I mean, so Senator Johnson, by the way, if our viewers right now, Senator Johnson is nailing on a number of the huge issues right now across the board, from the NIST study being debunked, the Alaska study, which totally did a complete 180 on what was found in the NIST report, to the firefighters who were there in the building and heard explosions, and where nothing from the plane, or no plane actually hit Building 7 whatsoever. The amount of fuel that would be required to bring down Building 7 would be like nanothermite 2,000 degrees at the very least to melt steel. And there was empty offices all through that building, Senator, as you know. So there was not any like papers, burning materials, couches that would even get up to that burning temperature. And these families, I think in many ways, have felt like they've been lied to, and they've been dragged around. They've been asking for information from their government, and they've just been told to, just shut up, just sit down, take this 9/11 Commission report as the gospel truth, and you don't ask any more questions about it.
Well, that's why you deserve commendation, because if you are willing to be called a conspiracy theory, then other people with legitimate questions, it doesn't hurt quite so much, right? Because you are just saying, here's a list of questions I cannot answer and the American people deserve. And so I think that so many people in politics would not want to be smeared with that conspiracy label. And since you're willing to wear it, then the rest of us can ask questions. So I just wanted to give you that admonishment.
It's brave. Yeah, we'll say it's brave.
No, it's stubborn.
Okay.
So I've seen their playbook. What they do, and they've done it to me. So I've seen now. I understand what they do. They'll go out and they will discredit somebody, right? They'll figure out some way, whether it's true or false. They'll figure out something to marginalize that individual, to destroy them. And then all they have to do is, anytime that person spouts something, well, he's totally discredited. They've done that to me. So again, I know.
And then the whole movement gets discredited, right?
Right. So again, they're very good at doing this. I mean, it's the CIA that I think is during the Kennedy's assassination investigation. Talked about how we just call these people conspiracy theorists. It works marvelously well. It just works great. I mean, they did it to all these doctors that had the courage and compassion to treat COVID with things like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. They just destroyed them so that no other doctors would speak out. Very few doctors would use the ivermectin. They just wouldn't do it because they didn't want to be destroyed like these others. So it doesn't take very many people, make an example of them, and kind of the rest of the herd just steps back and says, I want to be able to pay off my student loans. I want to be able to continue my job. I don't want my reputation destroyed. So it's a very effective technique.
So, Senator, we'll get you out of here on this. We know you're busy. When do you think you will move forward with this an investigation on 9/11, hearing on this? When can we maybe expect that, do you think?
Well, right now, as I always describe myself, I'm a mosquito in the nudist colony. It's a target-rich environment. So I've got, right now we're trying to do the one big beautiful bill. That's kind of what's taking up all my time. I spent all weekend literally preparing and putting the finishing touches on a report that just kind of lays out really what dire straits we're in and how none of this is really addressing it. So been working on that. The reason I ran for a third term was nobody was advocating for the vaccine injured. We've held one hearing on the corruption of the federal agencies hiding the myocarditis signal. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So again, right now I'm open for business. If you have information, we're willing to look at it. Okay, I've got a very open mind. I mean, these documentaries they put together, a couple that I mentioned, there's other ones, are really excellent. Again, I'm not vouching for all of them. I don't know what's true. Some of this stuff may be not on the up and up. I just can't really say. But I'm in right now the mode of gathering information, asking the questions, and if I hold a hearing, it's literally going to be the unanswered, legitimate questions surrounding 9/11.
Well, as I mentioned, Senator, last week I had a long discussion, a couple hours here with some really American heroes, firefighters. One who really led the charge on trying to shine a light on Building 7. They put together a whole report that they're hoping to get in front of President Trump. It's like a 3 or 4 page report on Building 7 and how the controlled demolition. So I will make sure I will do my part to get that report over to your office. And you can take and run with it if you will. So, Senator, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your bravery in this. Good luck on this big, beautiful bill, and hope that people are paying attention. Hopefully, your report will see the light of day and people will pay attention to how we can have a more effective, big, beautiful bill. Senator, great to see you.
Well, thanks for having me on, and definitely give me that information. I will read it. Trust me.
Perfect.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Senator. Great to see you.
Yeah.
When you've been called a conspiracy theorist enough, it doesn't hurt anymore. So That's my one bit, is that tactic is losing its sting. And we have seen that happen very in front of our very eyes.
He brings up a great point about the strategy and tactic used, right? Because then they'll use this to sort of like have someone sort of infiltrate the movement. They'll get somebody involved in it who's maybe not on the up and up, and then the whole movement gets painted as you throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak.
Right. Right.
And so I've seen that. So thank you, Senator. All right. Well, we got more news to get to. We're going to speak with Representative Andy Biggs of the great state of Arizona. Man, they are fighting the spillover from what's happening in California right now, trying to keep that state a stronghold and keeping it free of Chinese land purchases, keeping it free of the illegal immigration debacle that's happened. We're going to speak with him in just a moment on that. Plus, we're going to go to Los Angeles for coverage there as well. But first, all right, studies have been done to show everything. Well, let me talk about this. So studies have been done to show that the flavanols in cocoa stimulate stem cells to come out of bone marrow, like bees coming out of a beehive in your bloodstream. And they go out, they find whatever needs to be repaired. If it's in your heart, they'll fix it. If it's in your liver, they'll fix it. If it's in your skin, they'll fix it. But don't take it from me. Let me show you a clip from Harvard scientist Dr. William Lee that backs all of this up. Watch.
So studies have been done to show that the flavanols in cocoa stimulate stem cells to come out of your bone marrow like bees in a beehive in your bloodstream, and they go out and they find wherever it needs to be repaired. If it's in your heart, they'll fix it. If it's in your liver, they'll fix it. If it's in your skin, they'll fix it. And so we can eat foods like high flavanol cocoa in order to be able to actually get the stem cells to work a little bit better. Now, how do we know this actually functions, works in people? Well, clinical studies have been done with high flavanol cocoa to show that in like men who are in their 60s with heart disease, they could actually just have 2 cups of dark chocolate hot cocoa a day for a month. Yeah. And they doubled the amount of stem cells in their bloodstream, and their circulation improved measurably. And then what's even more important and impressive is that there was a study called the Cosmos study that was completed recently that showed that eating high flavanol cocoa decreases the risk of cardiovascular death.
Yeah.
Right, over a period
Like
of
a statin.
like a statin, right. Exactly. Except made with by eating the same thing that you use to make chocolate.
That's
so we're
incredible.
not telling people to go out to have chocolate, which is a confection, which has got a lot of sugar and all kinds of other stuff in it.
Yeah.
But it's the stuff underlying
Underneath it,
the core of it.
So studies show that cocoa flavanols increase stem cell circulation by over 100%. The best of all, it's only 20 calories with no sugar. And our team at Black Forest Supplements have built this into a supplement. That's right. This is not just some old cocoa. It's a stem cell power-up. And if you're experiencing significant aging, slow recovery, weak immunity, blame your lazy stem cells. And right now, they are doing a 50% off store-wide discount, including cocoa. So I highly recommend you guys go ahead and check it out ASAP. They're going to put this up for 48 hours. You can scan the QR code on your screen, get 50% off for the next 48 hours. Go to blackforestsupplements.com/redacted. Give it a try.
Well, Republicans in Arizona voted for Senate Bill 1109, which was a measure designed to prohibit the Chinese government and its state-owned enterprise from acquiring a 30% or greater interest in Arizona real estate. But then Governor Hobbs said, actually, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Even though lawmakers voted it through, she went ahead and vetoed it. Why? She said it was ineffective at counter-espionage. Like, we just don't need it. Like, I like the idea of it, but we just kind of don't need it right now. Not important. Going to throw this in the trash. Well, the Senate and the representatives there are going to try to push it through because they voted for it on behalf of their constituents. Joining us to discuss is Arizona State Representative Andy Biggs. He's running for governor to get Katie Hobbs out of there. So he's got a lot to say on the matter. So how does it feel to pass legislation you think is important and then have the governor just throw it in the trash? Why do you even come to work?
Well, so the governor here does not acknowledge that China actually is effectively a Cold War adversary, and that's her problem, right? And so she's got a problem with that. Number one, and number two, she can veto it now because there's a veto-proof legislature in Arizona. We have majorities, but we don't have the necessary supermajorities to override. But the third thing is, and this is what I find most interesting, I actually was on a phone call with someone today, a real estate guy, and I said, tell me what's going on. And he said, Andy, there actually was an attempt by a straw man to purchase land across the street from Luke Air Force Base, which is, by the way, is a training facility for the U.S. Air Force. And he said, finally, once it got peeled back, the brokers said, we're not going to sell it to you because they discovered that it was a straw man for China. That's the point. This is happening all over, and this governor is not paying attention. And there's a lot of people say, well, it's only 1% of all the agricultural land, but it's near sensitive sites, whether it's dams, electrical infrastructure, military bases. That's where they're buying it. The Chinese are buying it, and they now own billions of dollars. In 2020, they went from 2020 to 2021. They doubled their holdings in the United States. And in 2020, it was $1.9 billion. And in 2021, it was over $3.5 billion. And now who knows how many billions of dollars, because we don't keep track of it. It's amazing.
Right. Well, her response is, we don't really need it. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to see that.
Right.
Go ahead, Clayton.
Congressman, I want to ask you, so we covered this story last week after the veto, and so many people in our chat room had said, well, because they said, why is China buying up so much land? And so many of our viewers said, well, the real question is, why are we allowing them to do it? It's not, they are buying it up because, it's easy to do. As you mentioned, you could just use a straw man LLC and just, who knows, right? I mean, it's how Walt Disney bought up all the orange groves. No one knew that it was Walt Disney buying up all the orange groves in Florida. If they knew it was him, they probably would have put their foot down and wouldn't have allowed it. But so why are we allowing this to happen in the first place?
Well, 20 states have actually prohibited it already. Most of them what? Red states, right? So 20 states have said no. We've introduced legislation multiple times here. We actually have pending legislation here that we need to get through the federal government. And the reason that we have allowed it here is because the Democrats, the left, has fought us in Congress for years, saying, "Well, that's really anti-Asian. You're being anti-Asian." That's nothing could be further from the truth. What we are is we are anti-spying from an economic and military superpower that wishes to be the world's hegemon. And if this was the former USSR, I think you would have gotten probably 90% of people in Congress to say, no, we're not going to sell the USSR land, especially not near our critical infrastructure. So what you have, though, is the far left since the demise of the Soviet Union and the Cold War has become so anti-American that they're willing to actually sell this land, see it acquired without constraint. The other thing, too, I would tell you is that has to happen is we have to have better tracking and auditing measures to know who is buying up that land. And people are very nervous about that because because then all of a sudden, do you have a federal registry? What's going on here? But I can tell you that one of our problems is you don't know, because of the strawman situation, and China's pretty good at hiding this, you don't know who's buying all the land. But what we have to do is we've got to at least get it on the books to say you can't do it.
Yeah, especially near secretive or U.S. military installations right next door, where there's very little or no commercial value at all. So why are they buying this land there? Go ahead.
Well, one of the ways that Democrats shoot down legislation, and we see this in California when, for instance, the law is to lower the age of sexual predators to 15, that if and they said, no, let's keep it at 17. And when you ask them, why don't you want to protect 15-year-olds? They say, oh, well, just not like this. We do want that, but just not like this. And then you never see a revision law. So it's like, this is the way that they refute things is, yeah, this might be a problem, but just not like this. But no productive revisions. And that's what this reminds me of. And so what do you think the governor has a plan, or she's just hoping this will go away?
Well, the governor doesn't have a plan. And this is consistent with where she has been, like, for instance, on the border. She disbanded the Border Security Task Force. She took down the container walls that the previous governor had put up. She had done nothing on the border until I announced I was going to run against her. And the border is a big issue, and everybody in the state knows where my position is on the border. So all of a sudden she's, oh, okay, well, let's try to do something on that. It's similar to this. It's basically she just doesn't have a plan, number one. Number two, I'm not sure that she really can process the issue that's really there, because the issue is real. Because not only does Arizona have Luke Air Force Base, Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, we have a place where you train out in the Barry Goldwater range that we have training pilots and missile launchers and a whole series of things. But folks, I'm just telling you, we also have a series of dams. The water that comes in that supplies 5 million people as a series of dams. You've got Hoover Dam. You've got Glen Canyon Dam. All these are major dams, power supply, water supply, and she's not going to protect those infrastructures. She clearly, in my opinion, doesn't have a plan, nor can she process the potential hazard for the state.
And you are running against her. You threw your hat into the ring for the 2026 gubernatorial race. President Trump, I think it was a few weeks ago, threw his endorsement behind you. That's a big endorsement. A lot of people, though, are concerned. We've seen what happens in Arizona. We see what happens with these ballots. A lot of people say, well, we'd love to vote for Andy Biggs, but can we trust that the system is actually going to work there? My gosh, we saw what happened with Kari Lake. What do you say to that?
I say 180,000 votes, and here's the way you think of it. Donald Trump won by 180,000 votes. That's the largest margin in any battleground state. So he demonstrated that what his theory was too big to rig, right? I mean, so he demonstrated that actually works. And so what we need to do is we've got a new election integrity, not integrity, but the county recorder. He supervises elections in Maricopa County, which is the biggest county in the state by far. And so he's trying to get it cleaned up with voter rolls and that type of thing. We control the board of supervisors who wants a clean election as well. So if they work in a collaborative fashion, we believe we can get, well, maybe not perfect, but we can get a pretty good election. And that's all we need right now, because we've got a voter registration advantage. We're going to get people out to vote. And when they do, we can overtake some of the just inherent systemic problems we have in Arizona. And then, by the way, same governor vetoed legislation that would have given us Florida-style election integrity, which, as you know, Florida is about 3 times as big as Arizona. Arizona's about 7.5 million. Florida's 3 times as big. And somehow they're able to get their results on the night of the election, and Arizona drips and drabs 2, 3, 4 weeks behind. And so if we can make it through this election cycle, you'll have the governor that'll sign a bill that'll give us a new, clean election system.
Can you imagine voting against election integrity? That's the state of Arizona right now. Congressman, good luck to you in this gubernatorial race. We'll be watching it very, very closely here on Redacted. Don't be a stranger. We'd love to have you back on.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me. Keep up the good work, guys.
Thanks, Congressman. Great to see you. All right, we got more news. We're going to go to Los Angeles next.
Yes, we are. We're going to talk to someone who is actually there with a nuanced point of view, not just one side is right and one side is wrong. If you follow Kaizen Asadu on X, then you'll realize that he has a lot to say from the ground. It doesn't look beautiful there, but is this a necessary escalation by the Trump administration? So we're going to talk to him about that. Before we get there, though, we want to remind you about our show sponsor, Armra. Now, Armra makes a supplement that is made of colostrum. And if you've ever been a nursing mom, you know that colostrum is the first substance that you make before your milk comes in. We call it pre-milk, and it is basically superpower for your baby. It has everything that you need. Well, Armra has been able to harness that for humans. You're not eating human or taking human colostrum. Actually, you're taking it from cows. And it is has over 400 bioactive nutrients that work at the cellular level to reactivate your body's innate capacity to regenerate and thrive. So if you're ready to reclaim your health, then you need to go to tryarmra.com/redacted. You'll receive 15% off your first order. And it is designed, again, to optimize gut health, hair health, vitality, skin health. Everything that comes from a strong gut is exactly what you'll get from taking colostrum. So check it out. Again, that's tryarmra.com/redacted. Find strength and immunity, strengthen your metabolism and your microbiome, revitalized hair growth, all of that because of colostrum by Armra. One more time, that's tryarmra, ARMRA.com/redacted. Well, President Trump authorized the deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops to Los Angeles this weekend to respond to what the White House described as protesters turned rioters. And now we see 2 competing narratives playing out on your partisan cable news. The Democrats are saying this was peaceful, didn't need to be done. I mean, a lot of the images we're seeing look peaceful, but anyone can create a narrative with an iPhone. Republicans are saying this was a violent insurrection. This was always violent from the get-go. Gavin Newsom is saying we didn't need the federal government's help. So what is the true story? Well, Kaizen Asadu is there, and he's going to explain it to us because, again, anyone can manipulate a narrative with cell phone footage, and we know that we never got the truth about January 6th. So can we see this now before the narrative is crafted? Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So one of the things you said is that the president and his troops have inflamed a situation that is not actually helping with deportations and illegal immigration. So it might have been an unnecessary conflict, but I guess and that's a nuanced take, which absolutely we welcome here. And I saw you got a lot of crap for it, and I want to help you make that case. But I also want to just ask you, you were there. What was it like? Was it terrifying?
Yeah, so first to clarify, I went to the organized protest at City Hall in downtown Los Angeles on June 8th, which was Sunday. So that was yesterday. I did not go to any of the riots or other organized protests or disorganized protests on Friday or Saturday. So I'm not going to say that I went to all of the protests. What I can say for myself is the protest that I went to was peaceful while I was there. I know that there were also other demonstrations that got violent. But I actually want to reframe or just articulate what I actually mean here. I'm not saying that Trump should have not sent in the National Guard. It's very difficult to see to what degree these protests got out of hand and to what degree LAPD already had things in hand. What I'm saying is that the general approach to these deportations needs to be both rationally intelligent, and I think a lot of Trump's approach is, and emotionally intelligent. And I'm concerned that we're missing some of the latter, because if we look at what just happened here, these protests and these riots are breaking out over 118 people being deported. There's 10 to 20 million people in the country. We can't keep doing this and deport 10 to 20 million people effectively. And I believe that we do actually need to deport them. And even though I recognize these are humans who just want to have a better life, it's not sustainable to have people in the country by violating the fundamental social contract of you enter the country according to the rules. I would like to see Trump tone down some of the rhetoric, because a lot of it feels like it's just unnecessarily emotional and calling Gavin Newsom names and calling everyone violent, when it is true that there's a percentage of the audience that is violent, there's a percentage that's not, and regardless, doing forced deportations is a part of the toolkit, but there's other parts of the toolkit that we need to employ and exhaust first, like cracking down on employers employing illegal immigrants, removing benefits from illegal immigrants, incentivizing illegal immigrants to leave the country by giving them resettlement payments, and then for the people who are left over, we can forcefully deport them.
Now, may I just point out that what you are offering here is the nuance that was denied anyone who went to January 6 protests. So, we screamed about that. We've been doing so for 4 years. We must do the same. We must not be hypocrites and say some of them have valid concerns and some of them are violent. Let's not loop this together. And do they have a valid point? Is there something inside of there? So we would be hypocrites to have screamed about January 6th if we don't do that right now. Go ahead, Clayton. I'm sorry. Were you going to say something?
No, I mean, I was just going to, I don't know if that was a question.
It was not a question. I'm just pointing, I'm just commending you for doing that. Would you like to respond, or I can ask you a real question? I apologize.
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, I think a lot of people are pointing the finger back at the left because they feel like the left pointed the finger at them over January 6th. And in either case, it's not only counterproductive, it doesn't end the cycle to point back. Because, yeah, Biden was asleep at the wheel, if he was at the wheel at all, during the last 4 years and allowing unprecedented numbers of people to cross over the border. And I'll point out this has been an issue for the last 30 plus years across both Republican and Democrat presidents. And I'm glad that Trump is finally actually has the temerity to try to really resolve this thing. I just want him to resolve it in a way that has minimal disunity and chaos and maximal efficacy. So it's not about being nice. It's not about being the moral person. It's not about grandstanding. It's about, hey, can we do this thing that we need to do in the most graceful way that we can, while acknowledging that, yeah, it's disruptive. There's going to be a degree of resistance. There's going to be a degree of violence. We should always have a hard line against violence. And there are things that we can do to prevent these from being as inflamed as they are right now.
All right, a lot of people online saying, imagine coming out and protesting the deportation of illegal criminals, many of which who had criminal records. And that seems to be one of the arguments on one side. When you were there at that protest, we saw signs online of, get ICE out of here. People, of course, ratting out ICE, calling them out. What did you see in that way? I mean, it seems like ICE agents now are being vilified, called out. Their raids are being preempted because people are getting on the phone and trying to prevent ICE from swooping in and doing their jobs. What did you see at these protests about ICE and federal agents?
Yeah, so I saw a lot of verbal hostility toward ICE and F-ICE chants and tons of signs and graffiti and vandalism and all that stuff. And it was interesting being in that crowd, because not only did I see obviously Mexican flags that you guys have seen on social media, there are also a lot of Free Palestine flags, which I found interesting. It's like, well, why is this protest, which is about a domestic issue, have tons of flags about a country or a conflict that is thousands of miles away. And I think the general view of a lot of these people, and I'm speaking descriptively, I'm saying this without judgment, is a lot of it's just about power dynamics to a lot of these protesters. So they look at ICE as the guys with guns and the bad people who are taking away power from the little people. And the little people in this case are legal immigrants who are in the country trying to have a better life. So for them, their hostility toward ICE feels like a reaction to hostility toward them. And I think if a lot of them were looking clearly, they'd see, hey, look, this is an enforcement action of the laws that allow you to enjoy the life that you get to have in America. Because if we don't enforce a law, then very soon we're going to become the same kind of country that a lot of these people are coming from in the first place. But yeah, I saw a lot of anti-ICE rhetoric and a lot of just general support for whoever the little guy is in the conflict. And you see this kind of just in general with the leftist worldview, there's a general proclivity toward standing up for whoever is the smaller party in the conflict, even if that smaller party also broke the rules or did something wrong.
We saw the mayor of Los Angeles really like not condemning the violence against police officers and law enforcement, people throwing bricks at police officers and attacking law enforcement. That there was no condemnation really from the liberal left on that point. It's more the condemnation on the federal response and President Trump and trying to inject himself and the federal government into California and Los Angeles. I found that weird. How did that sit with you?
So I haven't been following what Karen Bass said closely, so I don't know if maybe she has condemned the violence and I just missed it. I don't know. I don't have a very high opinion of her leadership, especially having gone through the LA fires. But yeah, I think, look, just like I don't want leaders pointing the finger at someone else for something that their side did years ago, to the point that you made about January 6th, I don't want leaders to ignore the violence that's coming from their side because they don't like something that the other side is doing. Real leadership is being able to go beyond sides and saying, hey, look, violence is wrong, and if Trump did overstate his executive authority, that's wrong too. Again, I'm not saying that Trump did. I haven't actually researched it enough to understand what statutes he used and could he use them, all that. But people become so tribal and they become so focused on the other side that they don't actually get their side in hand. And yeah, I think a lot of these Democratic leaders, even if to the extent that they do issue condemnations, the condemnations are so hollow. I mean, we've all seen the post on X when something bad happens, I condemn violence. Like, what does that do? I don't want condemnations, right? I want executive action. And yeah, I think understandably there's a concern that in LA, when things get out of hand, they don't get handled. So I could see from Trump's perspective, whether he jumped the gun or not, I could see why he had zero trust in Karen Bass or Gavin Newsom to get things in hand, because I certainly don't have much trust in them after the fires.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
But when you point out the scale of the problem, what inflames people so much is showing up at a Home Depot or a clothing store or a garment district, because they say you don't know, you're just targeting people based on their race and thinking you're pretty much going to find some illegals there. But the federal government has had lists of these people that they were not able to do anything about under the Biden years. So the government has been tracking these people. They know where they are. And they have a pretty good idea where they're going to find them in large groups. It's not possible to send one person per house, given that there were millions, right?
20, maybe even 30 million, according to the numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, of course not. I mean, look, I live in LA. I see illegal immigrants every week. And the majority of them, they're just people. You know, they're people who are working, and a lot of them are landscaping, or they're taking care of houses, or they're waiting for work in parking lots. They're not hard to find. So yeah, it's if they're going to a Home Depot parking lot, it's probably because that's where a lot of illegal immigrants are waiting in a Home Depot parking lot waiting for work. Right. And unfortunately, part of the issue here is, look, it shouldn't matter what color or race these people are. Whether they're black, brown, white, or something in between, they're in the country illegally. Now, it just so happens because we are on a continent that's contiguous with the continent that they're coming from in South America or in Central America, that yes, a lot of these people are Latinos and Latinas. Of course, that's going to happen. So it's unfortunate that the deportation action necessitates removing so many people who look a certain way, but this doesn't need to be a racialized conversation.
No, it's a great point.
Yeah.
Absolutely a great point.
Absolutely.
Kaizen, great to see you as always. We haven't had you on, I think, since the LA fires. So hopefully it's under better circumstances next time. We appreciate you. Thank you for your great journalism there. Thank you for being on the streets and covering this and giving us this perspective. As always, great to see you.
Thanks for having me, and great to see you too.
All right.
All right, coming up here on the show, we're going to talk about the Wall Street Journal's fake, well, I'm going to call it a fake UFO story.
Yeah, you do that. I've been waiting for you to do that.
This weekend, this went viral, this big story, and I had so many people reaching out to me like, can you believe this? I mean, I had whistleblowers who literally worked on these programs saying, what in the world? So we're going to talk about that in a second. I'm very excited to talk about that. But first, let's talk about gold. Well, the markets are giving us whiplash. Have you seen the price of gold? It's not just rising, it's been soaring. And we have... we have our children's like IRAs structured in such a way where we invest in gold and precious metals inside of their IRAs. So we were just going over our family's finances the other day, like looking at our, children's IRAs that we have set up, and they're invested in precious metals. And we're like, wow, they've gone up significantly. Yeah.
Not that those ungrateful little kids know anything about it.
Go do your chores. They'd have had no idea. But
they work for our company, so that's why they're eligible for IRAs. We should make that clear.
Yes.
And so they have IRAs, but they are not the managers of them. And so I did call them. And it's like, look what mommy did with your IRA. Hopefully they will be able to do that when they are 18. But if you are in charge of your own IRA and you don't have a mommy who's doing it for you, then you need to look at Lear Capital, because they can help you.
That's right. I mean, and they actually can help you set up a self-directed IRA that the government doesn't control, Wall Street doesn't control. You have checkbook control of an IRA. When you call up Fidelity or any of those companies, you say, do you guys have self-directed IRAs? They will lie to you. They do not have them, because then they won't be making money off of all of your stock transactions. A self-directed IRA is just handled by a custodian. You pay almost no fees. But anyway, Lear Capital can actually set that up for you. They can actually do it for you for free. Just get on the phone with them. They'll actually handle that part of it because they're not the custodian. I think they work with, who's the one that we work with? They work with
Equity Trust.
Equity Trust is the custodian. So they'll actually facilitate that for you with Equity Trust. And then you can use that self-directed IRA to invest in stocks if you want. You could buy real estate. You could buy gold. You could buy silver. You could buy anything inside of that self-directed IRA, and that's exactly what we do. So they'll help you set it up. They're an American company, and they're an education company first. So just get on the phone with them, have a conversation, no pressure, and ask them all these questions you want. They'll stay on the phone with you for an hour. They're fantastic people. Call 1-800-613-3557 to get your free precious metals guide from them, or just go to their website, learredacted.com. And also, you can actually qualify for up to $15,000 in free bonus metals with a qualified purchase. So just have a conversation with our friends at Lear Capital. They're a great American company, and they will help you get set up on all of this. And yes, I should point out, this is just for American investors. Like if you're in Canada watching, unfortunately, that will not happen. So you have to be in America to take advantage of everything they have to offer. All right, let's talk about the Wall Street Journal. The timing here is very, very strange, and it's almost too convenient. Over the weekend, the Wall Street Journal published what I can only describe as like a total hit piece on the UFO community and UFOs in general. I couldn't stop laughing, though, as I read it, because so much of these things, because when you know it, and it's just like, the whole thing just stunk. Here's the article: the Pentagon disinformation that fueled America's UFO mythology. So it's a mythology now. It's a total mythology, according to the Wall Street Journal. The article's headline might as well have read, "Nothing to see here, folks, just your government gaslighting you again." According to the Journal, all this talk about UFOs, decades of sightings, whistleblower testimonies who've worked on these programs, crash retrieval programs, the reverse engineering programs, all of it, military encounters, high-ranking members of the military, Marine Corps pilots. Hell, I even interviewed an Air Force One pilot, yes, who flew the President of the United States and had a UFO tracking Air Force One. All of it, according to the Wall Street Journal, has just been basically one big Pentagon disinformation campaign. You didn't see aliens. You saw oddly shaped superfast aircraft that were secretly built by the United States military, and apparently they've been pulling this off since the 1950s. Even the now infamous 1967 Malmstrom Air Force Base incident in Montana, many of you know it well. There's many books written on the incident, where Air Force officers, including Colonel Robert Salas, witnessed a glowing object, massive glowing object, at least 40 feet in diameter, hovering off the ground right over the U.S. Air Force Base. And they watched as our nuclear missiles went offline one by one. It's just written off as another secret U.S. weapons test. That, oh, that wasn't a UFO that did it. It was a secret weapons test that shut down our own nuclear weapons? Okay. That's the story they're now sticking with, according to the Wall Street Journal. So let's break down this article, expose what's really going on here. Here's the crux of the article as I see it. The Pentagon itself sometimes deliberately fanned the flames in what amounted to the United States government targeting its own citizens and disinformation. So nowhere in the article do they talk about things that maybe the Pentagon wasn't involved with. They totally kept it on the Pentagon's disinformation campaign. So according to the Journal, a significant chunk of the UFO hysteria we've seen over the past 70 years wasn't the work of aliens, but it was the work of the U.S. military, deliberately misleading the public to protect secret aerospace projects. And the Wall Street Journal makes fun of MAGA and Trump supporters in this article as well, who are demanding answers about our secret programs, making fun of them about like wanting answers about Epstein, making fun of them for wanting answers about 9/11. You're a MAGA, according to the Wall Street Journal. So what about Area 51? Stealth tech, spy planes, all real, of course, but to hide them, the Pentagon fed the UFO stories to the public on purpose, according to the Wall Street Journal. One example in the article had an Air Force colonel in the 1980s going to a Las Vegas bar owner and giving him pictures of what appeared to be flying saucers, even though they had been doctored, according to the Wall Street Journal. The colonel was conducting a deliberate disinformation campaign so that the bartender would then put him up on his wall and be like, yeah, these are the things that happen a few miles from here at like Groom Lake in Area 51. So come to my bar. These are actual photos given to me by a colonel. So that's how this works, right? So let that sink in. Our own military planted fake alien stories with civilians to create a smokescreen around black budget projects. Here are some of the photos of flying saucers. Put them up in your bar so people will believe these stories and not that we're actually doing these off-the-books projects. That's in the Wall Street Journal. Then there's this gem. It's called Yankee Blue, basically a form of hazing. For years, new recruits at the Air Force, according to the Journal, were told there was a super secret unit investigating aliens. They were briefed in all seriousness. They were given names. They were given mission names, craft retrievals, all of it. They were even shown fake photos. They even had to sign non-disclosure agreements, except it was all fake. It was all a fake unit called Yankee Blue. And they were in strict orders to keep quiet. Many personnel went their entire careers believing that Yankee Blue was real. It was all fake, says the Wall Street Journal. This wasn't just some light prank either. According to AARO, the program misled even seasoned officers and may have warped actual investigations into UAPs. The Pentagon didn't stop this until 2023. Yankee Blue. That's a 30-year run of like institutional gaslighting, hazing, basically, of new recruits. Next up, though, is what I consider really the heart of the UFO credibility movement, the 1967 Malmstrom Air Force Base incident. It's famous. Many of you probably know it. Multiple high-ranking U.S. Air Force personnel, including Colonel Robert Salas, testified under oath that a glowing object hovered over the base. It was at the front gate, and then it moved, and then it was over top of the actual launch pads where the nuclear missiles would launch in Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. And then one by one, all of these nuclear missiles went offline while this UFO hovered over them in the air. Massive object. Okay. Now remember, each of these nuclear missiles was independently separated from the other one. So they weren't all contiguous. They weren't all connected. They weren't all daisy chained. One of them would go offline, and then the next one went offline, and then the next one went offline. It's a famous case. Multiple highly respected, high-ranking members of the U.S. Air Force witnessed it happen. They were told not to ever talk about it. It wasn't just spooky, it was terrifying. A lot of these guys were terrified of what they saw. It was really a national security breach of the highest order. And then it not just happened in Montana at Malmstrom, it also happened in Wyoming. It happened in other Air Force bases. Well, the Journal would like you to believe that it wasn't a UFO at all. These officers were simply duped by our own weapon. Get this. That it was a 60-foot platform that was wheeled out, that basically people wheeled out like a 60-foot platform with a giant glowing EMP on top of it that turned off all of the missiles. That's what it was. Nothing to see here. It was like a giant Trojan horse. It reminds me of like Monty Python and the Holy Grail when they pushed the giant wooden rabbit into the castle. Like, no one's going to notice this thing? Really? Okay, so they want us to believe that it was a 60-foot platform and it was done all with our own weapon to take our own nuclear weapons offline. We were disabling our own nuclear arsenal as part of a weapons test. Okay, and we just never told the base commander what was happening. Like you wouldn't notify the base commander of this incident or this occurrence to prepare for it. Okay, total BS. And now they're rewriting the Malmstrom story altogether. What's next? Are we going to learn that Roswell was just another weather balloon all over again? That story debunked? Either that's total nonsense or we've got an even bigger story on our hands here. And what if this was an EMP test? Why decades of silence on it? Why not just declassify it if that was the case? Last year, the Pentagon released its historical records report on UFOs, and in typical bureaucratic fashion, it concluded that there's no evidence that the United States government investigation, academic inquiry, or review panel has confirmed extraterrestrial visitations. And then here's the part of the article where they pick on MAGA supporters. MAGA skepticism about the deep state further feeds the notion that government bureaucrats have been keeping those secrets from the American public. At a November hearing of two House Oversight Committees, Representative Nancy Mace, a Republican from South Carolina, cast doubt on the Pentagon's report. Quote, "I'm not a mathematician, but I can tell you that doesn't add up," she said. And she's been, of course, very brave in trying to get to the bottom of this. But now we learn from the Wall Street Journal piece that many of those most sensitive revealing stories like Yankee Blue, the EMP tests, Area 51 disinformation ops were intentionally omitted from the report. That, quote, "the Pentagon omitted key facts in the public version to protect classified secrets and avoid public embarrassment." Okay. But here's where it gets like really dystopian. What began as tactical deception, though, has metastasized into sort of a paranoid mythology. Even senior military officials now believe it. Okay. So basically, if you're a senior military official and you believe in the UFO narrative, you're delusional, paranoid, that you've fallen for the paranoid mythology of UFOs. So thanks to the Wall Street Journal this weekend, we now have a new disinformation campaign, basically. The Pentagon spent decades lying to the public about UFOs, and now they're horrified that people actually believe them. Do you believe the Wall Street Journal story? I don't. Why now? Why is the Wall Street Journal...
Typically, my answer to that, no matter the content, is no.
No. But just the timing of it. Like, why now? Why is the Wall Street Journal releasing this story now? Remember, the Wall Street Journal relieves a lot of advertising revenue from the defense industry. Full-page advertisements from, like, Northrop Grumman, Boeing. You just go on their website, you can even see big banner ads for, like, Boeing, defense contractors. I don't know. This report, in my opinion, is designed to create even more confusion about these secret programs. I've interviewed multiple eyewitnesses who were part of America's secret space program, who've had their lives turned upside down as a result of it for telling the truth of what they saw. Were these people lying about what they saw and they had their lives ruined as a result? I mean, people who were involved in this stuff who literally have like physical ailments as a result of being near these particular programs, cancers, other things. I mean, again, I interviewed like Nira Isley, who was a former U.S. Air Force pilot. If you worked for the U.S. Air Force as one of their top radar operators. In fact, she was so good, they brought her into the secret space program. What she saw was unbelievable. I'm actually going to be sitting down with her again because she has some really phenomenal new revelations we're going to talk about here. But I interviewed her about almost 2 years ago here on the channel. Go back and seek that out. What she saw is astonishing. So she worked at the U.S. Air Force. She's had her life like turned upside down. And that's just one. I mean, so many countless whistleblowers and eyewitnesses who are a part of these programs. But, according to the Wall Street Journal, it's all just like one big disinformation campaign.
But also the tone of it is hard to accept. It's like, no, there never really were aliens. The government was effing with us. Isn't that funny? Like, that's not okay, even if that were true.
Yeah.
So here's the problem I have, though. Okay, so let's just say this Wall Street Journal story, let's just take it and say it's true. Okay, so this is what the government did. Why is there no result? Why is there no, so if they've been working on secret weapons program, like these secret, like the flight capability, craft that they have, why don't we see any of them? We know what the SR-71 Blackbird is. Yeah. We know what the U-2 is, but then why isn't there anything that the military has that we see that looks anything like any of the stuff people are reporting? None of it does. Like the secret programs they have, we eventually see the technology. We see the results.
Right. It may take 20 years, but you're right. We'll see it eventually. The stealth, we'll see like what people thought were like this large triangular craft, ended up not being UFOs at all. They were secret government craft, of course, that ended up becoming, was it the stealth? Yeah, the stealth fighters, right? That look like, like the Y-Wing program and other stuff, like Operation Boxcar and things like that. But eventually we will have these. So maybe this is part of the plan. They're going to roll out soon. We're going to see like their anti-gravity propulsion technology that they've gotten from reverse engineering these craft many, many years ago. And we're going to get to see these craft that they've built using that technology. And they'll hide the fact that this was because of downed programs. Russia, China, and others who've also had access to these same downed craft. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see it in the future. Who knows?
Well, let us know what you think of that. That's going to wrap up our show for the day. Recall that we have a newsletter. We have a daily newsletter. You can find it at redacted.inc, and it's totally free. And we link you to the original source material for this stories we're going to cover in the show. So head on over to redacted.inc, find the newsletter button, and there on the left, and then you authenticate your email address, and then you get it every day, Monday through Thursday. And again, we're reminding you that we have an abbreviated schedule through the summer. So we are not doing Monday shows, but we did today. The news was big. We had the time, and also we're taking off Thursday this week. So everything's a little bit wonky. We appreciate you staying with us, though. We will have a show this week, Monday through Wednesday, and then we'll see you back next week. So I apologize that it's a little topsy-turvy, upside down. That's sort of how our lives are when the kids are home. We got one behind the camera right now who's trying to tell, it's crazy here.
Yeah.
Say hello, Eve.
Yeah, come on over here, Eve. Eve Rose.
Eve, who has not brushed her hair.
Yeah. And tomorrow on the show.
You finished your book.
Good.
Very good.
Tomorrow on the show, JJ Carroll is going to join us to talk about the LA riots and what's happening there. We're also going to talk to James Fox, who's done a number of documentaries on UFOs. I want to ask him about this story. So James is going to be here on the show tomorrow. That's just a few of the guests we'll have here on our Tuesday show. So,
did you like your book?
Yeah.
Will you give it 5 stars?
Yeah.
5-star review.
The summer reading
Amazon.
program. The summer reading program.
Oh, so Eve would like you to check out this book because her dance studio owner wrote it. So if you would, check out Totalina, just hit shelves. And Eve is giving it 5 stars. So if you are in need of a book for children, there you go. All right. Thank you for joining us today.
Eve's book review. All right. Bye, everyone.